Everybody got up late on Boxing Day. The Griffith.com room was much quieter than it had been lately. Many youngs punctuated in the lazy conversations. Hermione's hair was bushy again. She confessed to Harry that she had used rebel amounts of Slicky's hair potion on it for the ball, but it's way too much bother to do every day, she said matter-of-factly, scratching a purring Crookshanks behind the ears. Ron and Hermione seemed to have reached an unspoken agreement not to discuss their argument. They were being quite friendly to each other, so oddly formal. Ron and Harry wasted no time in telling Hermione about the conversation they had overheard between Madame Maxon and Hagrid, but Hermione didn't seem to find the news that Hagrid was a half-giant nearly as shocking as Ron did. Well, I thought he must be, she said, shrugging. I knew he couldn't be poor giant, because they're about 20 feet tall. But honestly, all this hysteria about giants, they can't all be horrible. It's the same sort of prejudice that people have towards werewolves. It's just bigotry, isn't it? Ron looked as though he would have liked to reply scathingly, but perhaps he didn't want another row, because he contented himself with shaking his head disbelievingly while Hermione wasn't looking. It was time now to think of the homework they had neglected during the first week of the holidays. Everybody seemed to be feeling rather flat. Now that Christmas was over, everybody except Harry said it was starting once again to feel slightly nervous. The trouble was that February the 24th looked a lot closer from this side of Christmas, and he still hadn't done anything about working out the clue inside the golden egg. He therefore started talking the egg out of his trunk every time he went up to the dormitory, opening it and listening intently. Hoping that this time it would make some sense, he strained to think what the sound reminded him of. Apart from salty musical sauce, but he had never heard anything else like it. He closed the egg, shook it vigorously, and opened it again to see if the sound had changed, but it hadn't. He tried asking the egg questions, shouting over all the wailing, but nothing happened. He even threw the egg across the room, so he hadn't really expected that to help. Harry had not forgotten the hint that Cedric had given him, but his less than friendly feeling towards Cedric just now meant that he was keen not to accept his help if he could avoid it. In any case, it seems to him that if Cedric had really wanted to give Harry a hand, he would have been a lot more explicit. Harry had told Cedric exactly what was coming in the first task, and Cedric's idea of fair exchange had been to tell Harry to take a bath. Well, he didn't need that sort of rubbishy help, not from someone who kept walking down corridors with hand in hand with Cho anyway. And so, the first day of the new term arrived, and Harry set off to lessons, weighed down with books, parchment, and quills as usual, but also with a larkin worry of the egg, heavy in his stomach. As though he was carrying that around with him too. Snow was still thick upon the grounds, and the greenhouse windows were covered in condensation, so thick that they couldn't see out of them in herbology. Nobody was looking forward to care of magical creatures much in this weather, though, and as Ron said, the screws would probably warm them up nicely, either the chasing them or my blasting off so forcefully that Hagrid's cabin caught fire. When they arrived at Hagrid's cabin, however, they found an elderly witch with closely cropped grey hair and a very prominent chin standing before his front door. "Hurry up now, the bell rang 5 minutes ago," she barked them as they struggled towards her through the snow. "Who are you?" said Ron, staring at her. "Where's Hagrid?" "My name is Professor Crabbe-Plank," she said briskly. "I'm your temporary care of magic creature teachers." "Where's Hagrid?" Harry repeated loudly. "He is indisposed," said Professor Crabbe-Plank shortly. Soft and unpleasant laughter reached Harry's ears. He turned Draco Malfoy as the rest of the Slytherins were joining the class. All of them looked gleeful, and none of them looked surprised to see Professor Crabbe-Plank. "This way, please," said Professor Crabbe-Plank, and she strode off around the paddock, where the huge beer-bottomed horses were shivering. Harry, Ron, and Hermione followed her, looking back over their shoulders at Hagrid's cabin. All the curtains were closed. Was Hagrid in there alone and ill? What's wrong with Hagrid? Harry said, hurrying to catch up with Professor Crabbe-Blank. Never you mind, she said, as though she thought he was being nosy. I do mind, though, said Harry hotly. What's up with him? Professor Crabbe-Blank acted as though she couldn't hear him. She led them past the paddock where the beer-bottomed horses were standing, huddled against the cold, and towards a tree on the edge of the forest where a large, a beautiful unicorn was tethered.
Many of the girls awed at the sight of the unicorn. "Oh, it's so beautiful," whispered Lavender Brown. "How did you get it? They are supposed to be really hard to catch." The unicorn was so brightly white that it made the snow all around look grey. It was pawing the ground nervously with its golden hooves and throwing back its horned head. "Boys, keep back!" barked Professor Crabbe-Blank, throwing out an arm and catching Harry hard in the chest. They prefer the women's touch unicorns. Girls to the front and approach with care. "Come on, Izzy does it." She and the girls walked slowly forward towards the unicorn, leaving the boys standing near the paddock fence watching. The moment Professor Crabbe-Blank was out the earshot, Harry turned to Ron. "What do you reckon's wrong with him? You don't think a stroke?" "Oh, he hasn't been attacked, Potter, if that's what you're thinking," said Malfoy softly. "No, he's just too ashamed to show his big ugly face." "What do you mean?" said Harry sharply. Malfoy put his hand inside the pocket of his robes and pulled out a folded page of newsprint. "There you go," he said. "Hate to break it to you, Potter." He smirked as Harry snatched the page, unfolded it, and read it with Ron, Seamus, Dean, and Neville looking over his shoulder. It was an article topped with a picture of Harding looking extremely shifty. Dumbledore's young mistake. Albus Dumbledore, eccentric headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, has never been afraid to make controversial staff appointments, writes Rita Skeeter, special correspondent.
In September of this year, he hired Alistair Mad-A. Moody, the notoriously giant Happy XR, to teach defense against the dark arts, addictions that caused many recite eyebrows. At the Ministry of Magic, given Moody's look no habit of attacking anybody who makes a student moment in his presence. Mad-A. Moody, however, looks responsible and calmly when said Basilius, the part human Dumbledore employs to teach a gap on magical creatures. Rebus Hagrid, who admits to being exempted from Hogwarts in his that year, has enjoyed the position of grammar at the school ever since a job secured for him by Dumbledore last year. However, Hagrid used his mysterious influence over the headmaster to secure the additional post of care of magical creatures teacher over the heads of many better qualified candidates. An alarmingly large and furious-looking man, Hagrid has been using his newfound authority to terrify the students in his care with a section of horrified creatures while Dumbledore turns a blind eye. Hagrid has mimed several pupils during a series of lessons with many admit to be very frightening. I was attacked by a hippogriff and my friend Vincent Grubble got a bad bite of a flobberworm, says Draco Malfoy, a fourth-year student. We hate Grid, but very just too scared to say anything. Hagrid has the intention of kissing this campaign of intimidation, however, in conversations with a daily reporter last month, he admitted breeding creatures he
has dubbed blessed ended scrubs, vaguely dangerous crosses between manticores and fire crabs. The creation of new breeds of magical creature is, of course, an activity usually closely observed by the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. Hagrid, it seems, considers himself to be above such petty restrictions. I was just having some fun, he says before hastily changing the subject. As if this were not enough, the Daily Prophet has now unearthed evidence that Hagrid is not, as he has always pretended, a pure-blood wizard. He is not, in fact, even pure human. His mother, we can actually revile, is none other than the gang's Ridfulfa, whose whereabouts are currently unknown. Bloodthirsty and brutal, the gangs brought themselves to the pain of accidentally by warring among themselves during the last century. The handful that remained joined the thanks of he who must not be named, and were responsible for some of the world's muggle killing of his Ring of Terror. While many of the gangs who served he who must not be named were killed by arrows working against the dark side, Fritulfa was not among them. It is possible she escaped to one of the gang communications still exciting in foreign mountain ranks. If his actions during care of magical creators lessons are any guide. However, Fritulf's son appears to have invited her brutal nature. In a bizarre twist, Hagrid is reported to have developed a close friendship with a boy who both about whose fall from power, terribly drawing Hagrid's own mother, like the rest of who supports into hiding. Reports Harry Potter is unaware of the unpoliced truth about his large friend, but Albus Dumbledore surely has a duty to ensure that Harry Potter, along with his fellow students, is warned about the dangers of associating with part guides. Harry finished reading and looked up at Ron, whose mouth was hanging open. "How did you find out?" she spurred. "But that wasn't what was bothering Harry." "What do you mean? We all hate Hagrid?" Harry splattered Malfoy. "That's his rubbish about him." He pointed at Crabble, getting a bad bite of a flubberworm. They haven't even got teeth. Grabble was skiing, apparently very pleased with himself. Well, I think this should put an end to the earth's teacher carries, said Malfoy. He says clinks. Half gain, and there was me thinking that's just slaughtered a bowl of Scarecrow when he was young. None of the mummers and teachers are going to like this at all. They'll be worried he'll eat their kids. You, are you paying attention over here? Professor Crabble Bank voice caroled over to the boys. The girls were all clustered around the unicorn now, strong to eat. Harry was so hungry, and the daily practical stood in these hands as they turned to stare under him and the unicorn, whose many magical properties Professor Crabble Plank was now communicating in a loud voice so that the boys could hear too. I hope that she stays that woman, said Property Potil, when the lesson had ended. And there they...
I hope she stays it, woman, said Pervat Patil when the lesson had ended, and they were all heading back to the castle for lunch. That's more what I thought care of magical creatures would be like. Proper creatures like unicorns, not monsters. What about Hagrid? Harry said angrily as they went up the steps. What about him? Said Parvati in a hard voice. He can still be gamekeeper, can't he? Parvati had been very cool towards Harry since the ball. He supposed that he ought to have paid her a bit more attention, but she seemed to have had a good time all the same. She was certainly telling anybody who would listen that she had made arrangements to meet the boys from Big's Batons in Hogsmeade on the next weekend trip. That was a really good lesson, said Hermione as they entered the Great Hall. I didn't know half the things Professor Grubblypants told us about unicorns. Look at this. Harry snarled and he showed the Daily Prophet article under Hermione's nose. Hermione's mouth fell open as she read. Her reaction was exactly the same as Ron's. How did the terrible Skeeter woman find out? You don't think Hagrid told her? No, said Harry, leading the way over to the Gryffindor table and throwing himself into a chair furious. He never even told us, did he? I reckon she was so mad he wouldn't give her loads of horrible stuff about me. She went ferreting around to get at him. Maybe she heard him telling Madame Maxime at the ball, said Hermione quietly. We did have seen her in the garden, said Ron. Anyway, she is not supposed to come into school anymore. Hagrid said Dumbledore had her. Maybe she's got an invisibility cloak, said Harry, letting chicken carousel onto this plate and splashing it everywhere in his anger. Sort of thing she did do, isn't it? Hide in bushes listening to people. Like you and Ron did, you mean, said Hermione. We weren't trying to hear him, said Ron indignantly. We didn't have any choice. The stupid git, talking about her giantess mother where anyone could have heard him. We have got to go and see him, said Harry, this evening after divination. Tell him we want him back. You do want him back? He shouted at Hermione. Well, I'm not going to pretend it did make a nice change, having a proper care of magical creatures lesson for once, but I do want Hagrid back. Of course I do, Hermione added hastily, quailing under Harry's furious stare. So, that evening after dinner, the three of them left the castle once more and went down through the frozen grounds to Hagrid's cabin. They knocked and Fang's booming barks answered. Hagrid, it's us. Harry shouted, pounding on the door. Open up. He didn't answer. They could hear Frank scratching at the door, whining, but it didn't open. They hammered on it for 10 more minutes. Ron even went and banged on one of the windows, but there was no response. What is he avoiding us for? Hermione said, when they had finally given up and were walking back to the school. He surely doesn't think we did care about him being half giant. But it seems that Hagrid did care. They didn't see a second of him all week.
He didn't appear at the staff table at mealtimes. They didn't see him going about his gamekeeper duties in the grounds, and Professor Grubby planned continued to take the care of magical creatures classes. Malfoy was gloating at every possible opportunity. Missing you, half-bred Paul, he kept whispering to Harry, whenever there was a teacher around so that he was safe from Harry's relation. Missing the Elephant Man? There was a Hogsmeade visit halfway through January. Hermione was very surprised that Harry was planning to go. I just thought you'd want to take advantage of the common room being quiet, she said. Really, get to work on that egg. Oh, I reckon I've got a pretty good idea what it's about now, Harry lied. Have you really? Said Hermione, looking impressed. Well done. Harry's insides gave a guilty scream, but he ignored them. He still had 5 weeks to work out the egg clue. After all, and that was ages. And if he went into Hogsmeade, he might run into Hagrid and get a chance to persuade him to come back. He, Ron and Hermione left the castle together on Saturday and set off through the cold, wet grounds towards the gates. As they passed the Durmstrang ship moored in the lake, they saw Victor Crumb emerge onto the deck, dressed in nothing but swimming trunks. He was very skinny, but apparently a lot taller than he looked, because he climbed up onto the side of the ship, stretched out his arms and dived right into the lake. He's mad, said Harry, staring at Crumb dark head as it bobbed out into the middle of the lake. It must be freezing. It's January. It's a lot colder where he comes from, said Hermione. I suppose it feels quite warm to him. Yeah, but there are still the giant squid, said Ron. He didn't sound anxious. If anything, he sounded hopeful. Hermione noticed his tone of voice and frowned. He's really nice, you know, she said. He's not at all like you think, coming from Durmstrang. He likes it much better here, he told me. Ron said nothing. He hadn't mentioned Victor Crumb since the ball, but Harry had found a miniature arm under his bed on Boxing Day, which had looked very much as though it had been snapped off a small model figure wearing Bulgara Quidditch robes. Harry kept his eyes skinned for a sign of Hagrid all the way down the slushy High Street, and suggest a visit to the Three Broomsticks once he had ascertained that Hagrid was not in any of the shops. The pub was a crowd, as ever, but one quick look around at all the tables told Harry that Hagrid wasn't there. Harry thanked. He went up to the bar with Ron and Hermione, ordered 3 butterbeers from Madame Rosemerton, and that Glowmile that he might just as well have stayed behind at least to the egg whaling after all. Doesn't there ever go in the office? Hermione whispered suddenly. Look! She pointed into the mirror behind the bar, and Harry saw Ludo Bagman reflect there, sitting in a shadowy corner with a bunch of goblins. Bagman was talking very fast in a low voice to the goblins, all of whom had their arms crossed and were looking rather menacing. It was indeed odd. Harry thought that Bagman was here at the Three Broomstick on a weekend when there was no Triwizard event, and therefore no judging to be done.
Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Bagman in the mirror. He was looking strange again. quite as strange as he had done that night in the forest before the dark mark had appeared. But just then Bachman glanced over the bar, saw Harry, and stood up. In a moment, Harry heard him say brusquely to the goblins, and Bachman hurried toward the pub towards Harry, his boyish grin back in place. "Harry," he said, "how are you? Been hoping to run into you. Everything going all right?" "Fine, thanks," said Harry. "Wonder if I could have a quick private word, Harry?" said Bachman eagerly. "You couldn't give us a moment, you two, could you?" Okay," said Ron, and he and Hermione went off to find a table. Bachman led Harry along the bar to the end farthest from Madame Rosmerta. "Well, I just thought I'd congratulate you again on your splendid performance against that horntail, Harry," said Bachman. "Really, superb." "Thanks," said Harry, but he knew this couldn't be all that Bachman wanted to say, because he could have congratulated Harry in front of Ron and Hermione. Bachman didn't seem in any particular rush to spill the beans, thought. Harry saw him glance into the mirror over the bar at the goblins, who were all watching him, and Harry, in silent thought, their dark, slanting eyes. "Absolute nightmare," said Bachman to Harry in an undertone, noticing Harry watching the goblins too. "Their English isn't too good. It's like being back with all the Bulgarians at the Quidditch World Cup. But at least they use sign language another human could recognize. They slot keep goblin in gobbledygook, and I only know one word of gobbledygook, bloodwork. It means pig cakes. I don't like to use it in case they think I'm threatening them." He gave a short booming laugh. "What do they want?" Harry said, noticing how the goblins were still watching Bachman very closely. Well," said Bachman, looking suddenly nervous. They're looking for Barty. Why are they looking for him here?" said Harry. "He's at the ministry in London, isn't he?" As a matter of fact, I've no idea where he is," said Bachman. "He sort of stopped coming to work. Been absent for a couple of weeks now. Young Percy, his assistant, says he's ill. Apparently he's just been spending instructions in by all. But would you mind not mentioning that to anyone, Harry? Because Rita Skeeter's still poking around everywhere she can, and I'm willing to bet she'd work Barty's illness up into something sinister. Probably say he's gone missing like Bethan Jorkins. Have you had anything about Bethan Jorkins?" Harry asked. "No," said Bachman, looking strange again. "I've got people looking, of course. About time," thought Harry. "And it's all very strange. She definitely arrived in Albania because she met her second cousin there. And then she left the cousin's house to go south and see an aunt. And she seems to have vanished without trace and road. Blowed. If I can see where she's got to, she doesn't seem the type to elope, for instance. But still, what are we doing? Talking about goblins and better Jorkins? I really wanted to ask you." He lowered his voice. "How are you getting on with your golden egg?" Not bad," Harry said untruthfully. Bachman seemed to know he wasn't being honest.
"Listen, Harry," he said. "I feel very bad about all this. You were thrown into this tournament. You didn't volunteer for it. And if I can help at all, I brought in the right direction. I've taken a liking to you, the way you got past that dragon. Well, just say the word." Harry looked up into Bachman's round, rosy face and bright baby blue eyes. "We're supposed to work out the clue alone, aren't we?" he said. careful to keep his voice castle and not sound as though he was accusing the head of the Department of Magical Games and Sport of breaking the rules. Well, yes, said Bagman impatiently. But come on, Harry, we'll want a Hogwarts victory, don't we? Have you offered Cedric help? Harry said. The smallest of Ron caressed Bagman's smooth face. No, I haven't, he said. Like I say, I'll take and I liken to you. Just throw it over. Well, thanks, said Harry. But I think I'm nearly there with the egg. Couple more days should crack it. He wasn't entirely sure why he was refusing Bagman's help, except that Bagman was almost a stranger to him, and accepting his assistance would feel somehow much more like chatting than asking advice from Ron, Hermione, or Sirius. Bagman looked almost affronted, but couldn't say much more as Fred and George turned up at the point. Hello, Mr. Bagman, said Fred brightly. Can we buy you a drink? No, said Bagman with the last disappointed glance and Harry. No, thank you, boys. Fred and George looked just as disappointed as Bagman, who was surveying Harry as though he had let him down badly. Well, I must dash, he said. Nice seeing you all. Good luck, Harry. He hurried out of the pub, the goblins asleep of their chair and excited after him. Harry went to rejoin Ron and Hermione. What did he want? Ron said the moment Harry had sat down. He offered to help me with the golden egg, said Harry. He shouldn't be doing that, said Hermione, looking very shocked. He's one of the judge, and anyway you already worked it out, haven't you? Nearly, said Harry. Well, I don't think Dumbledore would like it if he knew Bagman was trying to persuade you to cheat, said Hermione, still looking deeply disappointed. I hope he's trying to help Cedric as much. He's not, I asked, said Harry. Who cares if Diggory's getting help? Said Ron. Harry privately agreed. So the goblins didn't look very friendly, said Hermione, sipping her butterbeer. What was it doing here? Looking for Crouch, according to Bagman, said Harry. He's still ill. Hasn't been to work. Maybe Percy's poisoned him, said Ron. Probably thinks if Crouch knew it, he'll be made head of the Department of International Magical Cooperation. Hermione and Ron don't joke about things like that, look, and said, funny, goblins looking for Mr. Crouch. They normally deal with the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures.
Crouch can speak lots of different languages, so, said Harry. Maybe they need an interpreter. Worried about poor Ike goblins, nor are you? Ron asked Hermione. Thinking of starting up CSPUH or something? Society for the Protection of the Goblins? Ha ha ha, said Hermione sarcastically. Goblins don't need protection. Haven't you been listening to what Professor Binns has been telling us about goblin rebellions? No, said Harry and Ron together. Well, they're quite capable of dealing with wizards, said Hermione, sipping more of her butterbeer. They are very clever. They're not like house elves who never stick up for themselves. Uh-oh, said Ron, staring at the door. Rita Skeeter had just entered. She was wearing banana yellow robes today. Her long nails were a painted shocking pin, and she was accompanied by her punchy photographer. She put rings, and she and the photographer made their way through the crowds to a table nearby. Harry, Ron, and Hermione glaring at her as she approached. She was talking fast and looking very satisfied about something. He didn't seem very keen to talk to us. Did he, Bozo? No. What would it be, do you think? And what's he doing with a pack of goblins in Turnaway, anyway? sharing the sides. What nonsense! He was always a bad liar. Reckon sums it up. Think we should do it a bit of digging. Disgrace, a head or magical sprouts, Ludo Bogman. Snappy start to a sentence. Bozo, we just need to find a story to fit it. Trying to ruin someone else's life? Said Harry loudly. A few people looked around. Rita Skeeter's eyes winked behind her jeweled spectacles as she saw who had spoken. Harry, she said beaming. How lovely! Why don't you come and join? I wouldn't come near you with a 10-foot broomstick, said Harry furiously. What did you do that to Harry for, Rita Skeeter raised her heavily penciled eyebrows. Our readers had a right to know the truth, Harry. I am merely doing my... Who cares if he is half a giant? Harry shouted. There is nothing wrong with him. The whole pub had gone very quiet. Madame Rosemeter was staring over from behind the bar, apparently oblivious of the fact that the flagon she was filling with mud was overflowing. Rita Skeeter's smile flickered very slightly, but she hitched it back almost at once. She snapped open her crocodile skin handbag, pulled out her quick quote squeal, and said, "How about giving me an interview about the Hagrid you know, Harry, the man behind the muscles? Your unlikely friendship and the reason behind it. Would you call him a father's substitute?" Hermione stood up very abruptly, her butterbeer clutched in her hands as though it was granite. "You horrible woman," she said through gritted teeth. "You don't care, do you think? You don't care, do you? Anything for a story an animal will do, won't say? Even Ludo Bagman? Sit down, you're still a little girl, and don't talk about things you don't understand," said Rita Skeeter coldly, her eyes hardening as they fell on Hermione. "I know think about Ludo Bagman that would make your hair curl. Not that is not it," she added, eyeing Hermione's bushy hair.
"Let's go," said Hermione. "Come on, Harry, Ron." They left. Many people were staring at them as they went. Harry glanced back as they reached the door. Rita Skeeter's quick water squeal was out. It was zooming backward and forwards over a piece of parchment on the table. "She'll be after you next, Hermione," said Ron, in a low and worried voice as they walked quickly back up the street. "Let her try," said Hermione cheerily. She was shaking with rage. "I'll show her. Silly little girl I am! Oh, I'll get her back for this. First Harry, then Hagrid." "You don't want to upset Rita Skeeter," said Ron nervously. "I'm serious, Hermione. She'll dig something up on you. My parents don't read the Daily Prophet. She can't scare me into hiding," said Hermione, now striding along so fast that it was all Harry and Ron could do to keep with her. The last time Harry had seen Hermione in a rage like this, she had hit Draco Malfoy around the face. And Hagrid isn't going to hide anymore. He should never have let that excuse for a human being upset him. "Come on." Breaking into a run, she led them all the way back up the road, through the gates flanked by winded roads, and up through the grounds to Hagrid's cabin. The curtains were still drawn, and they could hear Fang begging as they approached. "Hagrid!" Hermione shouted, prowling on his front door. "Hagrid, that's enough. We know you're in there. Nobody cares if your mom was a gigant, Hagrid. You can't let that foul Skeeter's woman do this to you. Hagrid, you out here. You're just being..." The door opened. Hermione sat about and then stopped very suddenly because she had found herself face to face not with Hagrid, but with Albus Dumbledore. "Good afternoon," he said pleasantly, smiling down at them. We wanted to see Hagrid," said Hermione in the arranged small voice. "Yes, I surmised as much," said Dumbledore, his eyes twinkling. "Why don't you come in?" Okay, said Hermione. She, Ron, and Harry went into the cabin. Fang clouded himself upon Harry, and the moment he entered, barking madly and trying to lick his ears. Harry fended Fang off and looked around. Hagrid was sitting at his table, where there were two large mugs of tea, He looked a real mess. His face was blotchy, his eyes swollen, and she had gone to the other extreme where his hair was concerned. Far from trying to make it behave, it now looked like a wig of tangled wire. "Hi, Hagrid," said Harry. Hagrid looked up. "Lo," he said in a very hoarse voice. "Motti, I think," said Dumbledore, closing the door behind Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Driving out his wand and twinkling it, a revolving tea tray appeared mid-air, along with a plate of cakes. Dumbledore magicked the tray onto the table and everybody sat down. There was a slight pause, and then Dumbledore said, "Did you by any chance hear that Miss Granger was shooting Hagrid?" Hermione went silly pink, but Dumbledore smiled at her and continued, "Hermione, Harry, and Ron still seem to want to know you, judging by the way they were attempting to break down the door." "Of course, we still want to know you," Harry said, starting at Hagrid. "You don't think anything that Skeeter's cow?" "Sorry, Professor," he added quickly, looking at Dumbledore.
I have gone temporarily deaf and haven't any idea what you said, Harry, said Dumbledore, reeling his thumbs and staring at the ceiling. Right, said Harry sheepishly. I just meant, Hagrid, how could you think we'd care what that woman wrote about you? Two fat tears leaked out of Hagrid's little black eyes and fell slowly into his tangled beard. Living proof of what I've been telling you, Hagrid, said Dumbledore, still looking carefully up the ceiling. I have shown you the letters from the countless parents who remembered you from their own days here, telling me in no uncertain terms that if I sought you, they would have something to say about it. Not all of them, said Hagrid harshly. Not all of them want me to stay. Really, Hagrid, if you're holding out for universal popularity, I'm afraid you will be in this cabin for a very long time, said Dumbledore, now peering sternly over his half-moon spectacles. Not a week has passed since I became headmaster of the school, when I haven't had at least one owl complaining about the way I run it. But what should I do? Barricade myself in my study and refuse to talk to anybody? You're not half giant, said Hagrid crossly. Hagrid, look what I got for relatives, Harry said furiously. Look at the Dursleys. An excellent point, said Professor Dumbledore. My own brother, Aberforth, was prosecuted for practicing inappropriate terms on a goat. It was all over the papers, but did Aberforth hide? No, he did not. He held his head high and went about his business as usual. Of course, I'm not entirely sure he can read, so there may not have been bravery. Come back and teach, Hagrid, said Hermione quietly. Please, come back, we really miss you. Hagrid gulped. More tears leaked out down his cheeks and into his tangled beard. Dumbledore stood up. I refuse to accept your resignation, Hagrid, and I expect you back at work on Monday, he said. You will join me for breakfast at 8:30 in a great hall. No excuses. Good afternoon to you all. Dumbledore left the cabin, pausing only to scratch Fang's ears. When the door had shut behind him, Hagrid began to sob into his dustbin-lid-sized hands. Hermione kept patting his arm, and at last Hagrid looked up. His eyes were red indeed and said, Great man, Dumbledore, great man. Yeah, he is, said Ron. Can I have one of these cakes, Hagrid? Help yourself, said Hagrid, wiping his eyes on the back of his hand. Oh, he's right. Of course, you're all right. I've been stupid. My old dad would have been ashamed of the way I've been behaving. More tears leaked out, but he wiped them away more forcefully and said, Never shown you a picture of my old dad, have I? Here. Hagrid got up, went over to his dresser, opened a drawer and pulled out a picture of a short wizard with Hagrid's crinkled black eyes, beaming as he sat on top of Hagrid's shoulder. Hagrid was a good 7 or 8 feet tall, judging by the apple tree beside him, but his face was beardless, young, brown, and smooth.
He looked hardly older than 11. That was taken just after I got into Hogwarts, said Hagrid proudly. That was Dad chuffed. Thought I might not be a wizard, see? 'Cause my mom, well, anyway. Course, I never was a great shakes at magic, really. But at least he never saw me expelled. Died, see, in his second year.
Dumbledore was the one who stuck up for after that went. Got me a gamekeeper job, trust people he does. Gives them second chance, they vote him apart for other he'd see. He will upset anyone at Hogwarts, as long as they got talent. Now people can turn or even if their families weren't, well, all respectable. But some don't understand that. There are some who always could eat again, yeah. There are some who'd even pretend they just had hit bones, razor, and stand up, and you say, I am what I am, and I'm not ashamed, never be ashamed. My old dad used to say, there are some who all hood against you, but they not were bothering with. And he was right. I been an idiot. I'm not bothering with her no more. I promise you that. Big bones. I give her big bones. Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked each other nervously. Harry would rather the taking 50 blast at squats. For a walk that admired to Hagrid, that he overheard him talking to Madame Maxim. But Hagrid was still talking, apparently unaware, and had he said anything odd. Yeah, know what, Harry? He said, looking up photographically of his father, his eyes very bright. When I first meet you, you remind me of a bit. Mime and Dad ago, and you was feeling like, yes, would eat Hogwarts, remember. Not sure you were really up to it. And now look at Harry, school champion. He looked at Harry for a moment and said, very seriously, yeah, now that I love Harry, I'd love you 10 win. I really would. I show 'em all. Yeah, don't have to be poor blood, to do it. Yeah, don't have to be ashamed of other, yeah. It show me Dumbledore, the one who's got it right. Letting anyone as long as they can do magic. How do you doing with that egg, Harry? Great, said Harry. Really great. Hagrid's miserable face broke into a wide, virtual smile. What, my boy? You show 'em, Harry. You show 'em. Beat 'em all. Lionel Hagrid was quite like lying to anyone else. Harry went back to the castle later and afternoon with Ron and Hermione, unable and banish the image of the Harry expression and Hagrid, visually face in the hate imagine, Harry winning its tournament. The incompressible and egg wake more heavily the even and Harry's consequences the evening, and by the time he had got in bed, he had made up his mind. It's time to shelve his pride and see I Cedric's hit would worth anything.
Harry felt his feet slam into the ground. His injured leg gave way and he fell forwards. His hand let go of the twisted cup. At last, he raised his head. We are we, he said. Cedric shook his head. He got up, pulled Harry to his feet, and they looked around. They had left the Hogwarts grounds completely. They had obviously traveled miles, perhaps hundreds of miles. For Ivan, the mountains surrounding the castle were gone.
They were standing instead in a dark and overgrown graveyard. The black outline of a small church was visible beyond a large hill, 3 to their right. A hill rose above them to their left. Harry could just make out the outline of a fine old house on the hillside. Cedric looked down at the twisted cup and then up at Harry. "Did anyone tell you the cup was a portkey?" he asked. "No," said Harry. He was looking around the graveyard. It was completely silent and slightly eerie. Is this supposed to be part of the task?" "I do know," said Cedric. He sounded slightly nervous. "Once out, do you reckon?" "Yeah," said Harry, glad that Cedric had made the suggestion rather than him. They pulled out their wands. Harry kept looking around him. He had yet again the strange feeling that they were being watched. "Someone's coming," he said suddenly. Squinting tensely through the darkness, they watched the figure drawing nearer, walking steadily towards them between the graves. Harry couldn't make out a face, but from the way it was walking and holding its arms, he could tell what it was carrying something. Whoever they were short and wearing a hooded cloak pulled up over their head to obscure their face, and several paces nearer, the space between them closing all the time. He saw that we think is a person's arms looked like a baby, or was it merely a handle of rose?
Harry lowered his wand slightly and glanced sideways at Cedric. Cedric shot him a quizzical look. They both turned back toward the approaching figure. It stopped beside a towering marble headstone, only 6 feet from them. For a second, Harry and Cedric and the short figure simply looked at each other. And then, without warning, Harry's scar exploded with pain. It was agony, such as he had never felt in all his life. His wand slipped from his fingers as he put his hands over his face. His knees buckled. He was on the ground, and he could see nothing at all. His head was about to split open. From far away, above his head, he heard a high, cold voice say, "Kill this pair." A swishing noise and a second voice, which screeched the word to the night, Avada Kedavra. A blast of green light blazed through Harry's eyelids, and he heard something heavily fall to the ground beside him. The pain in his scar reached such a pitch that he retched, and then it diminished. Terrified of what he was about to see, he opened his stinging eyes. Cedric was lying spread-eagled on the ground beside him. He was dead. For a second that continued an eternity, Harry stared into Cedric's face, and his open grey eyes, blank and expressionless, at the windows of a deserted house, at his half-open mouth, which looked slightly surprised. And then, before Harry's mind had accepted what he was seeing, before he could feel anything but numb disbelief, he felt himself being pulled to his feet. The short man in the cloak had put down his bundle,
Lid was wound and was dragging Harry towards the marble headstone. Harry saw the name upon it flickering in the wan light before he was forced around and slammed against it.
Tom Riddle. The cloaked man was now conjuring tight cords around Harry, tying him from neck to ankles to the headstone. Harry could hear shallow, fast breathing from the depths of the hood. He struggled, and the man hit him with a hand that had a finger missing. And Harry realized who was under the hood. It was Wormtail. "You!" he gasped. But Wormtail, who had finished conjuring the roofs, did not reply. He was busy checking the tightness of the cords, his fingers trembling uncontrollably, fumbling over the knots. Once sure that Harry was bound so tightly to the headstone that he couldn't move an inch, Wormtail drew a length of thumb-black material from the inside of his cloak and stuffed it roughly into Harry's mouth. Then, without a word, he turned from Harry and hurried away. Harry couldn't make a sound, nor could he see where Wormtail had gone. He couldn't turn his head to see beyond the headstone. He couldn't see only what was right in front of him. Cedric's body was lying some 20 feet away. Some way beyond him, glinting in the starlight, lay the Triwizard Cup. Harry's wand was on the ground at his feet. The bundle of ropes that Harry had thought was a baby was close by, at the foot of the grave. It seems to be stirring fretfully. Harry watched it, and his scar seared with pain again, and he suddenly knew that he didn't want to see what was in these ropes. He didn't want the bundle opened.
He could hear noises at his feet. He looked down and saw a gigantic snake slithering through the grass, circling the bedstone where he was tied. Wormtail's fast, wheezy breathing was growing louder again. It sounded as though he was forcing something heavy across the ground. Then he came back within Harry's range of vision, and Harry saw him pushing a stone cauldron to the foot of the grave. It was full of what seemed to be water. Harry could hear it slopping around, and it was larger than any cauldron Harry had ever used, a great stone belly range enough for a full-grown man to sit in. The thing inside the bundle of ropes on the ground was stirring more persistently, as though it was trying to free itself. Now Wormtail was busying himself at the bottom of the cauldron with a wand. Suddenly there were crackling flames beneath it. The large snake slithered into the darkness. The liquid in the cauldron seemed to heat very fast. The surface began to not only to bubble but also to send out fiery sparks as though it was on fire. Steam was sickening, blurring the outline of Wormtail trending to the fire. The movement's benefit, the cloak became more gigantic, and Harry heard the high, cold voice again. "Harry!" The whole surface of the water was alight with sparks now.
It was as though Formital has flipped over a stone and revealed something ugly, slimy and blind, but worse, 100 times worse. The signs Formital had been carrying had the shape of the crouched human child, except that Harry had never seen anything less like a child. It was hairless and scaly looking, a dark raw. Its arms and legs were thin and feeble, and its face, no child alive ever had a face like that, was flat and snake-like, with gleaming red eyes. The thing seemed almost helpless. It raised its thin arms, put them around Formital's neck, and Formital lifted it. As he
did so, his hood fell back and had so the look of revulsion on Formetel's wig. And the Formetel lowered the creature into the cauldron. There was a hiss, and it vanished below the surface. Harry heard its frail body hit the bottom with a soft thud. Let it drown, Harry thought, his scar burning almost past endurance. Please, let it drown. Formetel was speaking. His voice shook. He seemed frightened beyond his wits. He raised his wand, closed his eyes, and spoke to the night. Bone of the father, unknowingly given, you will never your soon. The surface of the grain and Harry's feet cracked. Horrified, Harry watched as a fine trickle of dust rose into the air of Formetel command and fell softly into the cauldron. The diamond surface of the water broke and hissed. It sent spark in all directions and turned a vivid, poisonous-looking blue. And now Formetel's was whimpering. He pulled a long, thin, shining silver dagger from inside his robes. His voice broke into petrified sobs. Flesh of the servant, we willingly given you will revive your master. She stretched his right hand out in front of him, the hands with the missing finger. He gripped the dagger with tightly in his left hand and swung it upwards. Harry realized what Formetel was about to do a second before it happened. He closed his eyes and tightly as he could, but he couldn't block the scream that pierced the night. The one thought Harry thought he had been stabbed with the dagger too. He heard something fall to the ground, heard Formetel anguished, panting. Then a sickening splash as something was dropped into the cauldron. Harry couldn't bear to look, but the potion had turned a burning red. The light in the shone sought Harry's closed eyelids.
Formetel was gasping and mourning with agony. Not until Harry felt Formetel's anguished breath on his face did he realize that Formetel's was right in front of him. Blood of the enemy forcibly taken. You will recruit your foe. Harry could do nothing to prevent it. He was tired to tingling. Squeezing down, struggling hopelessly at the ropes binding him. He saved the shining silver daggers shaking in Formetel's remaining hand. He felt its point penetrate the crook of his right arm, and blood seeping down the silver of his torn robes. Formetel, still panting with pain, fumbled in his pocket for a glass, and felt into Harry's coat. So what a dribble of blood fell into it. He staggered back to the cauldron with Harry's blood. He poured it inside. The liquid whizzing turned instantly blinding white. Formetel, his jaw down, dropped to his knees beside the cauldron. Then slumped, said one, and lay on the ground, cradling the bleeding slump of his arm, gasping and sobbing. The cauldron was shimmered, sending its diamond sparks in all directions, so blindingly bright that it turned all else to velvety blackness. Nothing happened. Let it have drowned. Harry thought, let it have gone wrong, and then suddenly the sparks emanating from the cauldron were extinguished. A shower of white steam billowed, tinkly from
the cauldron instead obligatory everything in front of Harry. So what he couldn't see Wormtail or Cedric or anything but waffles hanging in the air. It gone wrong. He thought it drowned. Please let it be dead. But them thought the mist in front of him.
Nothing, said Hermione quickly, trying to shove the paper out of sight. But Ron grabbed it. He stared at the headline and said, "No way! Not today! That old cow!" "What?" said Harry. "Rita Skeeter again?" "No," said Ron, and just like Hermione, he attempted to push the paper out of sight. "It's about me, isn't it?" said Harry. "No," said Ron, in an entirely unconvincing tone. But before Harry could demand to see the paper, Draco Malfoy shouted across the great hall from the Slytherin table. "Hey, Potter! Potter! How's your head? You feeling all right? Sure you're not going to go berserk on us?" Malfoy was holding a copy of the Daily Prophet too. Slytherins up and down the table were sniggering, twisting in their seats, and to see Harry's reaction. "Let me see it," said Harry to Ron. "Give it here." Very reluctantly, Ron handed over the newspaper. Harry turned it over and found himself staring at his own picture, beneath a banner headline, "Harry Potter, Disturbed and Dangerous." The boy who defeated he who must not be named is unstable and possibly dangerous, writes Rita Skeeter, special correspondent. Alarming evidence has recently come to light about Harry Potter's strange behavior, which casts doubts upon his suitability to compete in a demanding competition like the Triwizard Tournament, or even to attend Hogwarts School. Potter, the deadly prophet can exclusively reveal, regularly collapses at school, and is often heard to complain of pain in the scar of his forehead, relic of the curse which you-know-who attempted to kill him. On Monday last, midway through a divination lesson, your Daily Prophet reporter witnessed Potter storming from the class, claiming that his scar was hurting too badly to continue studying. It is possible, say top experts at St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries, that Potter's brain was affected by the attack inflicted upon him by you-know-who, and that he is insistent that the scar is still hurting in an expression of his deep-seated confusion. He might even be pretending, said one specialist. This could be a plea for attention. The Daily Prophet, however, has unearthed worrying facts about Harry Potter that Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts, has carefully concealed from the wizarding public. Potter can speak Parseltongue, reveals Draco Malfoy, a Hogwarts first year. There were a lot of attacks on students a couple years ago, and most people thought Potter was behind them, after they saw him lose his temper at a dueling club and set a snake on another boy. It was all hushed up though, but he's made friends with werewolves and giants too. We think he'd do anything for a bit of power. Parseltongue, the ability to converse with snakes, has long been considered a dark art. Indeed, the most famous Parselmouse of our times is none other than you-know-who himself, a member of the Dark Force.